Welcome to r/JustNoHOA, where people share stories about their crazy homeowner associations that make us feel better about not living in an HOA. Without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one is titled HOA Gave Me Heatstroke. My husband and I purchased a condo in a high-rise almost a year ago. We are the youngest owners by 30 years. Yeah, we live with a bunch of old people and have continuously been treated as such. This is our first purchase and we have never dealt with an HOA before, nevertheless one like this. We don't know if this is normal or if there's anything we can do to take legal action. There are a few instances that I want to ask about in particular. I was asked when we purchased the condo if I would be on the reserve committee that looked over finances and helped the budget for big projects. We have some old elevators that needed to be replaced. I joined the board and looked at the budget. Well, there is no budget. No one knows how much things cost, and costs are outlined as management $350,000, industrial $150,000. I asked if we had a breakdown and the woman running the reserve committee, let's call her the crypt keeper, tells me that she has it under control. I ask for an explanation and all I get is, "It's taken care of." We keep asking for an itemized breakdown and no one will give it to us. I realize that part of the budget is a Comcast bulk contract where we are all required to pay for Comcast basic cable even if we don't have it. I take note of this and bring it up at the yearly homeowners meeting. Flash forward to the annual meeting. The current president, let's call him Bob, announces that we need to increase the homeowner's fee to cover the expense of the elevators in case they go out. He is met with immediate yelling and we decide a vote is needed. A homeowner in the building, let's call them John, like John 1, starts screaming over everyone that we will not have an increase in fees and he will use his proxies to vote in whoever he wants who will vote against the increase. Bob, the president, surprisingly gets voted out of presidency even though everyone who attended wanted him to stay, and the new president, let's call them Samson, happens to be close to John. In true John fashion, he claims that he did not even have to use proxies and that the people voted for Samson. Everyone in attendance disagreed and was told to shut up. As soon as possible, Samson dismantles the reserve committee that I was a part of and then creates a new committee where we have to reapply to be on. The only person on that board, aka the only one managing the budget, is the crypt keeper. Multiple people applied, people who had spoken out against Samson and John, no one else was picked. I go to meet with Samson about taking out some unnecessary charges from the homeowner's fee, and Samson laughs and informs me that they have zero interest in reducing the homeowner's fee. Samson then tells me that if I want to communicate with anyone in the building about changing things, I need to go through them, they will approve and edit what I want to ask, and then they will post it if they think it's important enough. Fast forward to today, our air conditioning was supposed to be turned on 2 weeks ago. Samson and John decided that because of a frickin' rain shower, we would extend the air conditioning another week. My condo has been at 85 degrees with doors open and fans going 24/7. I work from the house, I know everyone does right now, and in the last few days I have suffered from heat exhaustion. When I inquired about the AC, I was told that Samson was cold and it would be turned on when the temp did not dip below 50 degrees at night. We live in the desert, it is 80+ during the day and 40 to 50 at night. A group of homeowners has tried to petition to remove the proxies, but Samson and John are both on the board and have to approve the removal. They have told us that they will never get rid of the proxies and if we don't like it, we can move. This has been documented in harassing emails to different homeowners from Samson and John. Samson happens to be a retired lawyer and John has just too much time on his hands. I don't really know what to do. Is this worth fighting? My husband and I are already planning to pay off our condo and sell it as soon as possible. It is just a shame because outside of the HOA nightmare, we love it here. The HOA is just so horrible that we have no desire to stay here long term if Samson and John continue their rule. And a person in the comments said, okay, look up your state's legal requirements for landlord/tenant rights. There should be a section on maximum temperature a unit can get to. Take a picture of a thermostat with a reading, attach the statue, and ask if the board is exempt from personal liability if they are sued as landlords refusing to follow the law because they control the HVAC. Send your letter as certified mail if your post offices are open, and tell them your next call is the housing authority, code enforcement, whomever could cause a headache in your state. A condo board has a weird relationship and obligation that touches on some of the responsibilities of landlords. The rest, run like hell as soon as possible. Another person said, you know what? That whole thing with the budget screams fraud, embezzlement, or at least mismanagement. If anyone ever gets to the bottom of it, maybe they're siphoning the money. Or maybe they grossly overpay on some services which turn out to be ran by someone's friend or family member. And oversight should be coded somewhere. It is a crucial part of democratic processes. You could probably sue them over denying you access to the financial documents of the HOA. And guys, I'm curious, what do you think about this story? Is there a sort of bigger scam behind it? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and while you're at it, I would also like to know if the majority of my viewers are still interested in JustNoHOA stories. Please let me know in the comments. And the next one is titled, Veteran is forced to sell home after he displayed an American flag on his porch. For quite a number of Americans, the 4th of July is not the only day they have chosen to celebrate America's independence. James Bush from Sweetwater, Florida is one of these people who believe that expressing pride for your country is one of the simplest things that can be done. It can be as easy as keeping the nation's flag on your property. According to him, one day I was thinking about the country and I put a small American flag on my front porch in a flower pot. He also added that though it was a little salute to the United States of America, it meant a lot to him. It is a small flag, but it stands for a big thank you, he added. But on the other hand, not everyone in Bush's neighborhood was delighted with what he did. Not long afterwards, he received a notice from the homeowner association at the Tides condominium, Sweetwater, requesting him to take away the flag from the flower. He said he got a letter violation which stated that the American flag was an unauthorized object and that he should remove it from where it was. However, James Bush, who has served for 6 years as an Air Force air traffic controller during the Vietnam War, decided not to take off the flag and afterwards was fined $100 every day, yet he did not remove it. After he has paid up to $1,000, the veteran decided to get a lawyer involved. The lawyer, Gus Saris, said, "We believe we have the right to display the American flag. We filed suit in the federal court." According to the lawyer, the two parties finally reached an agreement, which is that he can keep the flag in the flower pot. However, in a few months, the Homeowner Association HOA amended their flag ordinance to a flower pot ordinance. This meant that the veteran can then fly the flag on a pole and not in a flower. Gust said somehow they recategorized it and started doing the same thing again, which was the same flag, the same flower pot, the same dirt and the same plant. Bush's legal war has been existing for 7 years and said that the Homeowner Association had started plaguing him and began to fine him for several infractions, such as having a snowflake Christmas window decoration up after Christmas, not parking in his driveway straight enough, and for putting up solar light at Christmas. To add more heat to the fire, James Bush was not aware that the Homeowner Association has been making use of his HOA fees to pay off fines that he had incurred instead of using it for the original purpose. The whole showed another face when the Homeowner Association placed a charge on the veteran's property, claiming that he had not paid/been paying his mandatory dues. Finally, he reportedly said that he was made to offer his home for sale, which he did, and sold the condo so that it would not be foreclosed on. The veteran said, "I sold my place at a tremendous loss and got out of here." He also explained that while he's not living there, the HOA's laws still need to be tackled. He said somebody had to stand up and say, "This is not right." You know guys, the flying flag part is actually very interesting because in some parts of Europe, flying your flag is frowned upon. Meanwhile, I think in America it's a pretty normal thing to do, so I'm curious, do you have an American flag in your front yard, backyard, garden or wherever? Let us know in the comments. And the next one is a small update to the veteran HOA story. It is titled, Trial Begins for Veteran Suing HOA After Refusing to Remove American Flag. And actually, this update was from the beginning of 2020, so unfortunately this case is still ongoing. An Air Force veteran is suing his former homeowners association after refusing to remove an American flag from his flower pot. A number of witnesses took the stand with Bush up first. He was followed by the current district manager of First Service Residential, which was contracted to manage Sweetwater. She said the staff received death threats after Bush's media appearances. The HOA's lawyers say Bush made disparaging comments and criticized the HOA, which he had agreed not to do in their mutual settlement agreement. Bush said on the stand he believed the federal law would let him keep his 17-inch flag in his flower pot regardless of the settlement. The trial does not have a jury and is expected to finish Monday or Tuesday. The lawyer for the HOA says the issue has nothing to do with the flag. He says Bush broke a mutual settlement agreement with them. Bush disagrees and told First Coast News he does not regret showing his patriotism, even though because of the fines he says he had to sell his home to avoid being foreclosed on. Probably one of the biggest regrets I think a person can have in their life if they firmly believe something with all their heart, and when the time comes to stand up for it and they don't, I think you will regret it the rest of your life, Bush said. One of the HOA's lawyers said they would not give a comment. What started with an American flag in a flower pot has led to thousands of dollars in fines and nearly a decade of fighting between a veteran and a homeowners association. Air Force veteran James Bush is suing his former homeowners association after they reportedly fined him $100 a day for having an American flag in his flower pot. The homeowners association is Tides Condominium at Sweetwater by Dell Webmaster Homeowners Association. And guys, I'm curious, what do you think about this story? Do you think the veteran is in the wrong? Or is the HOA, as usual, playing their little dictatorship games? Let us know your opinion in the comments. And the next one is titled HOA Out Buildings Story. You may think that you are well informed about the HOA matters. I certainly thought I was. None of this was new to me, and the past HOAs I had been involved with were great. Despite, like many people, having a very busy work and personal schedule, I enjoyed attending HOA meetings, volunteering during cleanup days, and contributing to social events at past HOAs. I used to presume that the people who had issues in HOA communities were poorly informed, had not read their CC&Rs, and were probably deserving of whatever dispute they encountered with their HOA. For me, that belief recently changed. I had a home built in a rural subdivision that is a mix of older and newer homes. Before I settled on the lot, the first thing I did was go over to the county office, which has all of the rules on file for the subdivision. I studied them carefully before signing all the papers, completing the home construction and proceeding with the purchase and completed construction of the home. One thing I was sure of, I wanted a small garage or large shed to put my lawn equipment in. Looking around, seeing property with various outbuildings, this did not seem like an issue. After all, some had large detached garages, others had storage sheds that were large, and none of them really matched the house, but I did not mind. After all, I could see that this was a somewhat laid-back HOA when it came to what I saw and what was in the rules. I checked my CC&R document and confirmed what the rules were. Utility or storage buildings will be permitted as long as they are complementary with the dwelling and the construction and placement are approved by the Architectural Control Committee. The CC&Rs are very short, a couple pages, and that is the only one that deals with the construction of outbuildings. There were no published ARC rules available, but I did have the HOA board president's number. So I call, find out what sort of documentation they require and submit that. He made a strange comment that for my property he thought a small building would look nice, to which I comment that I'm fortunate enough to have a larger lot. The ARC board sets up an appointment to visit my property, presumably to discuss placement and perhaps provide some specifics that were not in the information I provided. That is when things started getting strange. A somewhat truncated recollection of the conversation went as follows. He says,
I see you submitted a proposal for 16 by 20. Perhaps you were not aware of the rules, but that is too big.
Really? I ask. There are 3 outbuildings and garages larger than that size within sight of my property, and numerous ones a couple blocks that are in the subdivision. Some people even have 2. At least mine matches the style and materials of my house. I wish they all did, but it does not really bother me that much that they don't. He says,
well, it is 10 by 10. That's all you can build. Those are the rules.
I said, what rules? Neither the CC&Rs nor the many existing structures are consistent with that requirement. I will be appealing this to the board. Hopefully we can avoid the time and expense of attorneys in resolving this. It goes back and forth, and eventually I conclude that there is no purpose in continuing the discussion. So I prepared the appeal documentation for the board. I included pictures, approximate dimensions using tools available via Google Earth, aerial views which showed the sizes of the buildings, and that some of these buildings were more recent, some were not, but had many examples showing that a large percentage of this small subdivision that had sheds and outbuildings that were out of compliance with even the rules in the CC&Rs. The size, siding, roofing, architecture were remarkably dissimilar to the house in nearly all instances where there were sheds. I requested to be added to the agenda and emailed the board this documentation so that they were prepared for my visit to the next month's board meeting. I requested either approval from the board or removal of the buildings that were not in compliance. I stressed that my strong preference was approval because I really did not have a problem with these buildings other than selective application of the rules. The only email I got back was from the welcoming director, and keep in mind that I had no interaction with this person other than to receive the booklet they gave new residents prior to receiving this email. This was not a response to some angry communication from me, but rather a boring PDF full of documentation and pictures of large and unmatched outbuildings. Get out if you don't want to follow the rules. You knew that there were covenants that went with the property you purchased. You had time to review them before you purchased, and if you did not like them, you should not have made that purchase. Your complaints and personal attacks against your neighbors is just plain bullcrap. So, if you do not want to cooperate with the rules, get out. May you be blessed and may you find peace somewhere else. I did not really know what to think of that, felt somewhat threatened, but went ahead to the board meeting hoping that there was just one unreasonable board member. At least the meeting was civil, but it was not productive. The response to approval of the building and removal of any neighbor buildings was simply no. Several immediate neighbors voiced their support, but the board was as uninterested in their thoughts as they were mine. So I decided that I needed the help of an attorney. He began his attempt to get them to see reason. His letter stressed several points. First, the CC&Rs do not allow for the regulation of the size of outbuildings. Second, both the initial application and subsequent application to the board had exceeded the 30-day requirement under the bylaws requiring written rejection, rendering them automatically approved. Third, despite these failings, I would be willing to negotiate in good faith because my goal was a mutually acceptable resolution. What ensued was about a year of my attorney and their attorney wasting all our money, writing letters and making their arguments to one another. It took a long time because the HOA attorney was very slow in responding. My attorney encouraged me to take the matter to court. He believed given the facts it was extremely likely that I would be successful, but it would also be expensive. Given his particular background, I strongly believe that if he thinks I would have been successful, I would have. I had initially planned and could afford to do that. At some point I decided that it was time to agree to end this battle and find peace somewhere else, as the welcoming director suggested, even though I prefer newer housing and that is nearly impossible to find outside of an HOA governed area. Thanks to local land use planning, which largely mandates associations for plots smaller than 5 acres. I am saddened to leave a house I had built that otherwise fits my needs very well and neighbors I will truly miss. But it is time to move on. I realize that it is not a requirement that I move, but at some point it is just worth it for improved quality of life. While I did not include all of the ugly interactions I've had with the BOD while living here, or witnessed being directed against my neighbors, the above example from the welcoming director is a sample of the kinds of communications people regularly receive. I will say that no unkempt yard or children's toys in the yard or car parked on the street or boat is as ugly as what I have witnessed from the BOD in this subdivision. I wrote this out simply because it may be helpful to those considering living in an HOA area or considering if they need to cut their losses and move on. Everyone has a difference of opinion. You may see their actions as legitimate. You may see some things that I could have or should have handled differently, and these suggestions would be helpful to others. I have no interest in politics, but if you do, and if you are considering getting involved with your HOA, it may be a good idea to do so in order to prevent behaviors and actions that you consider to be unreasonable. And guys, I'm curious, have you ever lived in a neighborhood that was governed by an HOA? Let us know in the comments. And with that, we have reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's content, and if you did, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to join our amazing community. Furthermore, don't forget to go to r/ripe stories on Reddit to post your own stories if you want me to read them out in a video. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I see you again tomorrow.